to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the big storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, day 10 of the 2025 Australian Open. Now officially in the books, we were treated to 4 entertaining quarterfinals, all of them entertaining for very different reasons. Of course, on today's podcast, what I want to do for all of you tuning in is recap everything that went down here on day number 10. Yes, of course, that means offering my thought on all the drama that unfolded between Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz. Djokovic ultimately to his 50th, let me say that again, 50th Grand Slam semifinal with a 4-set victory over the third-seeded Alcaraz. Of course, that statistic alone could be a 20-minute monologue on my behalf. I mean, that accomplishment, to be clear, there have been 71 major events since Novak Djokovic reached his first semifinal at the 2007 French Open. In that time, he has made 50. It might have been Wimbledon, not the French Open. 2007 Wimbledon championships. In those 71 majors, again, 50 semifinal appearances for Novak Djokovic. He hasn't lost back-to-back semifinals in over 14 years. It's just ridiculous what this man continues to accomplish. It's a resume that, dare I say, may just be unmatched across both men's and women's tennis history, of course. Certainly there was some drama over the course of his victory. Djokovic forced to take an injury timeout. He was dealing with a left leg issue. Looked awfully good, though, in sets 2, 3, and 4 on his way to that 4-set victory. And again, this is what I've been alluding to throughout the month of January, even in his loss to Opelka back in the first week of the season, even in some of his relative to Novak Djokovic struggles in week number 1 of the Australian Open. He's just had the look all tournament long, and the precision with which he played, the ability to capitalize on what was certainly a loose Alcaraz performance. It's why Novak Djokovic has become the first man in the Open era to reach 50 different Grand Slam semifinals. Obviously, coming in hot with that as the lead, because that is certainly our biggest storyline coming out of day number 10. But all of the matches were interesting. Certainly, you had an upset, even this late in the tournament, in 11th-seeded Paula Badosa's straight-set win over 3rd-seeded Coco Gauff. Badosa executed with such precision, not to use that term again, but to see the way she was steady through the Gauff forehand wing, but then attacked the space available to her on that ad side. It's just exactly how you would have drawn up the game plan. And certainly Coco Gauff contributed plenty of errors along the way, but sound execution for Badosa to become the 4th Spanish woman in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam semifinals. So certainly want to spend some time talking about that match. Sabalenka got pushed. I mean, the ball striking display that Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova put on from about a set and 1-love down in that second set all the way through midway through the third. She played with the pace you need to disrupt the rhythm of Aryna Sabalenka, but ultimately the world number 1, again, looked like the world number 1. It is a, 5 plus 14, 19th consecutive victory for her at the Australian Open. And again, all the feats for Aryna Sabalenka over this 2.5-year run now at the majors. Simply remarkable. We'll get into more of them here on today's show. And then, last but not least, let's answer the question. Was it a Sasha Zverev victory, or was it a Tommy Paul loss? Certainly a little bit of both, and the reason I say that is Tommy served for the first set. Tommy served for the second set. He had set points in each of those sets, and yet ultimately Zverev walks away with 2 7-6 sets to kick off the match, and unfortunately, Tommy was never able to recover. So, of course, for Zverev, well, it's another opportunity at a Grand Slam semifinal, another opportunity for him to chase the one thing that eludes his resume, a major title. And certainly there were some positives for Zverev to overcome late-set adversity in a way that we just haven't seen from him in quite some time. But there's also, again, unfortunately, a glass-half-empty take. This match was on Tommy's rackets. He had his opportunities, and certainly the service game he played to get broken at the end of set number 2 was particularly poor. A lot of takeaways from what was, again, a 4-singles match day 10 as we get into the quarterfinal round and certainly the business end of the year's first major. Again, what I want to do on today's show, there's your quick synopsis of the winners, but I want to get into more depth, offer you some details. How did each of these players emerge as victors? What did we learn that we should keep in our mind moving forward. And then, of course, what can we expect moving forward, not just from each of these players who emerged on day 10, but, of course, day 11, second half of our quarterfinals. We got 4 more fantastic matchups on the board I want to offer my thoughts on. That's our agenda here on today's Mini Break podcast as we continue our daily recaps of everything happening at this Australian Open. Of course, before, though, I offer you further depth, 2 quick things. One, for those of you listening in podcast form, just so you know, we're back live on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. Now, the start times have varied. It's typically been sometime between 2 and 3 p.m. throughout this major. I apologize for that. Things come up on the schedule of late recently, and this gets me to part 2, is we're planning for a big broadcast weekend on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. It's the ceremonial start to every college tennis season. It's the ITA kickoff weekend. You've got all the best teams, all the best players competing for spots at this year's National Indoor Championships, 2 events which, by the way, we will have continued coverage of on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. All of that is to say, Australian Open's winding down. You need your fix of tennis during the day. We got you covered this weekend, Friday through Sunday. The best college tennis you will find anywhere in the country is all happening on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. So make sure you go hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, of course, to this podcast, the Great Shot podcast feed, where we'll be previewing all that college coverage this week, and the Cracked Interviews podcast feed, where we have spoken with so many players, so many coaches across the tennis universe. Again, if you could go leave a 5-star rating, a little review on Apple Podcasts as well, always helps us with the sponsors. And once I know you've all done it, I'll stop asking. Moving forward, again, a lot of great content on the horizon. Make sure you're subscribed to everything, so you don't miss out on anything moving forward. With that said, let's get into day 10 of this 2025 Australian Open. Certainly an exciting day of tennis. And look, we all know what the biggest storyline was coming into the day. It might be the biggest storyline that emerges out of this Australian Open. It might be one of the matches we remember most from this Australian Open. It's Novak Djokovic earning a 4-6, 6-4, 6-3, 6-4 victory over third-seeded Carlos Alcaraz. Now, I do want to clarify, just because this will be one of the most memorable results of the tournament does not mean it's the highest level that we've seen across the board, the most dramatic match, dare I say that key word, the best match we've seen of this 2025 Australian Open. But whenever these two play, given obviously all that Djokovic has accomplished to date, given what Carlos Alcaraz is aspiring to accomplish and is on a trajectory to perhaps flirt with throughout his career, the fact that we have gotten to see these two play in so many significant environments, Olympic finals, Grand Slam finals, again, late in second weeks of these major championships, it's a special thing. You don't usually get to see this sort of age gap, this sort of generational bridge of superstar against superstar, dare I say. You got to see Brady Mahomes play a couple of times in playoff games. You got to see, I think you even saw them play once in a Super Bowl, right, with the Bucs beating the Chiefs, as my memory seems to indicate they did. You know, LeBron and Curry are one generation apart, not 2 or 3, as you could argue Djokovic and Alcaraz are. Yeah, Serena certainly got to play plenty of players like this as well, but it's very rare it happens in sport where two players, particularly with the older one still being seemingly near or at the peaks of his powers, which I'm not claiming Djokovic is, because I do think he was a better player even as recently as 2 seasons ago, still that he is still this close to being the best version of himself and relative to the rest of the field still so exceptional. Anyways, all that is to say, that's a long preamble. Anytime they get to share the court, we all set our alarms for 5 a.m., right, to wake up for this match. And certainly coming, out at the start of this match, Djokovic got out of the gates quickly. Djokovic gets a quick break on the board, and you start to think, okay, Djokovic settling in. Maybe, again, this is what we've seen flashes of from him throughout the course of the start of this throughout the last few rounds of this major. But no, of course, lo and behold, what does Carlos Alcaraz do? He breaks Djokovic right back in the subsequent service game 4-1-2, and that's when you know, right, that we're off and running. You're starting to think, ooh, maybe we will get to see these two today play at the peaks of their powers. And unfortunately, that just wasn't really the case. In set number 1, Novak Djokovic, obviously you saw at the end of the match, end of the set, taking the medical timeout, or late in the set, having some issues with his leg, just was limping around the court, unable to extend rallies in the classic Djokovician way, and the fact that Alcaraz was so dominant behind his first serve, cleaning up every +1 opportunity efficiently. 13 winners in that opening set for Alcaraz to Djokovic's 3. you just thought, oh no, like, unfortunately, maybe this is a guy 37 years old, excuse me, but turning 38 this year. Maybe the body will break down. Maybe, unfortunately, he doesn't have another special performance in him. And then, thankfully for all of us, Novak Djokovic does. And obviously that he gets off right away to a break lead in set number 2, just sort of resetting the tempo. And look, just to, I guess, nip the injury discussion in the bud here quickly, he talked openly after the match. I needed to get my leg taped. I needed to get it wrapped. I took painkillers. Took about 20 minutes, but then they were effective. And now that this match is over and they're starting to wear off, I'm starting to feel it more. He said I think he had to take more painkillers at the start of the 4th set as well. It was clear Novak Djokovic was dealing with something, and yet he wasn't compromised. Let's be clear. That injury was not debilitating to the point that his movement felt compromised, that he was unable to extend Carlos Alcaraz in all the right ways. And look, Alcaraz struggled on serve in this match, and he's clearly been tinkering with that serve. He talked about it openly, how that was a big project of his in the offseason, and talked about after match number 1 how he changed up his form. And even in this match, a match where he makes 74% of his first serves, the juice wasn't there. It just felt like it was really difficult for him to hit Djokovic off of his spot and successfully set up routine +1 opportunities in the way that he does when he's at his best and serving at his best and most confidently and exploding through the forehand and finding that forehand even if you get the return to the ad side of the court because he has anticipated so well, because the serve has set him up enough time to get his feet set. Felt like those easy +1 opportunities, sure, they were there occasionally. Of course they were. This is the guy who's world number 3. Even in a day where he's not serving his best, he's still going to have moments. But the plethora of +1 forehand and ad-side forehand weaponry that Alcaraz can be so dominant with, Djokovic took that away from him today. Djokovic did such an exceptional job of playing through the backhand corner, but attacking through the forehand corner. What do I mean by that? I'm glad you asked. Well, obviously, you don't want to give Carlos Alcaraz. You're not going to win a forehand-to-forehand exchange with Carlos Alcaraz. He hits that shot better than anyone in the world. You can't pick on the backhand corner exclusively. You can't get passive in how you attack that target because, again, as I have said, there's no more dangerous thing in tennis right now than Carlos Alcaraz loading up for an ad-side forehand. He can just do anything with it. Inside out, inside in, drop shot. Every action is at his disposal when his feet are set on that wing. You can't let him cheat over. And the way you don't allow him to do that is when you start to see him leak towards that wing, when the space becomes so open on the deuce side and he plays a backhand line trying to bait you into attacking his forehand on the run. You have to be bold enough to take that opportunity, to make the most of it. And Novak Djokovic did exactly that with the precision behind his first forehand, with the depth which he was playing every ground stroke. Obviously, there were some notable moments, right? The inside-out forehand he hits after the long exchange. What was that? 5-3 at the start of him, 5-4 maybe, trying to serve out that 4th set. And was it 5-4 or 4-3? It was late in that 4th set, an incredible exchange. Obviously, there was Alcaraz fighting off break point down, what was it, 3-4 or 2-4, whatever it was. I think it was 2-4 add out, the long exchange they play. Alcaraz finally able to find his way to the point when Djokovic yanks a forehand cross-court wide. The inherent physicality could be there at times for Carlos Alcaraz, but it felt like, and particularly as you look at the match, 40 unforced errors for Alcaraz to Djokovic's 27, Alcaraz wasn't willing, or that's just not Alcaraz's mentality. That's not his mindset. What makes Carlos Alcaraz so special is the moment he sees any sort of short ball opportunity to attack, to get forward, he makes the most of it. And unfortunately, on this day, he just wasn't able to execute well enough. And the reason for that was because of the depth of every Novak Djokovic ground stroke. Because Novak Djokovic, the best returner in tennis history, is able to find that requisite depth to take away the easy +1 opportunity for Carlos Alcaraz. The fact that Novak Djokovic was so beautifully accurate in the targets that he was playing to in both outer thirds. Obviously, there were other moments. Again, the long exchange they play, Djokovic able to hit the bump lob over Alcaraz's head. How about in the final service game, Djokovic getting on the full stretch, the little forehand over the backhand, high backhand volley of the approaching Carlos Alcaraz, able to get that over his head as well. The passing shot after a long exchange, again, he's able to dip at Alcaraz's feet, and Alcaraz misses the volley in the net for set point on point in set number 3. There are a lot of great examples of vintage Novak Djokovic defense, which speaks to, again, was he maybe compromised by injury? Or was he injured? Certainly. Was he compromised? No, he was not. He executed flawlessly. Another, his best win at a major certainly since the 2023 season, and for him to pick up another victory over Alcaraz after beating him at the Olympics as well, to still be able to do that at age 37. It's simply remarkable. Again, 50 total Grand Slam semifinals for Djokovic, who played with enough consistency, enough depth, took the opportunities available for him, enough returns in play. 22 of 34 at the net in this match to Alcaraz's 18 of 28, which speaks to, again, when Djokovic had Alcaraz stretched, he made the most of it, hit the overhead about as well as you can expect Novak Djokovic to hit that ball, with depth, with pace, to the right targets. I say as well as you can expect him to hit. He hits the overhead very well, but there were no significant moments of, oh no, the overhead had him compromised again. Djokovic was sound. Alcaraz hit himself into trouble. Alcaraz could never recover from deficits behind his second serve. You look for Novak Djokovic in the match, he wins 22 of 33 points on the Alcaraz second serve. And just again, the depth Djokovic was able to play off that return. It felt like Alcaraz tried to play with such pace in response to that instead of trying to play defense, trying to work his way back into this match, as at times he was able to do. Now, ultimately, you look in this match, and again, the extended rally, 5+ shot rallies in this match. Alcaraz only -3 overall for the match. Now, over 50% of the points, in fact, about 65% of the points were 0 to 4 shot rallies. Djokovic +5 in that category. Let's be clear, it was 135 total points for Djokovic to 126 for Alcaraz. This was an either-or match. Alcaraz, I should have mentioned this probably earlier, 4-5 Alcaraz serving, end of the second set. Djokovic puts on a returning clinic. And yes, the first serve absolutely betrayed Carlos Alcaraz in that moment, but the on-the-rise return winner he hits on the set point, I think he had 2 more returns like that just had Alcaraz in such a compromised position within the course of that game. Again, he was just in a deficit. He didn't serve well enough, and as is often the case in the script of an Alcaraz loss, he tries to hit himself out of trouble, I think, too frequently, because he doesn't need to do it. It's sort of like what I talked about with Holger Rune yesterday. There's an underlying physicality that, of course, Alcaraz possesses. You feel like, hey, why not just play a 75% neutral ball, wait for something short and a better short opportunity to come your way, and then work your way forward and be that explosive, be a bit more patient. But that's not who Alcaraz is. He always has you on the edge of your seat as his opponent because you never know what he's going to do next. He's explosive enough to extend rallies and, again, pull off the magnificent down an early break, bounces right back, and again takes that opening set. You thought he was going to be on cruise control. That he wasn't speaks to it was a sloppy performance, but Djokovic raised his level. Djokovic gave nothing away for free. It was that vintage, again, the unstoppable force met the immovable object, and the immovable object prevailed in Novak Djokovic. Just too consistent, too sound down the stretch, and executed such well with his +1 depth. Novak Djokovic threw in 4 sets over Carlos Alcaraz. Again, you look for Djokovic, 50th career Grand Slam semifinal, first male player to do it in the Open era, second player ever. Chris Everett made 52. That's ridiculous. He's also equaled Jimmy Connors for the highest men's singles win percentage at the Australian Open in the Open era, 91.7% win percentage. It's not as though he's only played 30 matches, 40 matches. It's a guy who's going to play probably 100+ matches at every major championship and almost hit 100 wins, it feels like, at all of them as well. That's how ridiculous it may be, except the French Open, but still, that's how ridiculous it's been for Novak Djokovic. A 50th career Grand Slam semifinal. I mean, do you go back, again, if you're Carlos Alcaraz, you go to the drawing board. You're a little disappointed, certainly, that you weren't able to manufacture your best tennis, that you weren't able to play sound enough tennis for a guy who was a bit physically off, particularly at the end of that first set. But then again, Djokovic turned it on. Djokovic played with depth. He returned well. There were opportunities there. You hate that service game came at 4-5 in that second set. And again, the serve being the controllable does feel like if Alcaraz continues to clean that up, it's just low-hanging fruit for continued improvement. Djokovic is through. 4-set victory for him. He knocks out Carlos Alcaraz again into a 50th Grand Slam semifinal. That's obviously the biggest headline coming out of day number 10. The biggest upset, how about Paula Badosa? Knocks off Coco Gauff, a straight set 7-5, 6-4 victory for Badosa to reach her first ever Grand Slam semifinal. Couple of points I would turn to indicative of the broader trends you saw throughout the course of this match. 5-all, 30-all, 30-40 points. Paula Badosa on that 30-all point. Played through the forehand wing, then attacked through the backhand corner when available. What do I mean by that? Well, again, this is Gauff serving, 5-all service game late in that first set, 30-all point. She was able to get Badosa stretched out wide into the forehand corner. What did Badosa do? She played with pace, she played with depth, she played into the outer third, but she chose safe targets and played into that Coco Gauff forehand, knowing, hey, if I can get her stretched wide enough with the lack of confidence with which Coco was swinging on the forehand wing yesterday, a storyline certainly in itself, she'll give me something short. And the moment Badosa got that short ball, redirected into the wide open space on the ad side, inside out. And again, perfectly played. Paula Badosa, again, taking that 30-all point. 30-40 point, just, again, ripped a forehand cross-court winner after playing through that forehand cross-court, waiting for the right short ball. And ultimately, again, this time the space available to her was cross-court through that wing. It was patience through the forehand to wait for the right attacking opportunity and then explode when that opportunity presents itself. Perfect execution to secure the break. Obviously, the backhand line winner she hits as well to secure the set 7-5. Badosa out-executed Coco Gauff, who had a very rough day on serve. With her forehand. And also, look, to Gauff's credit, Badosa races out to a set-and-break lead 2-1. Coco Gauff got that break right back. And you thought to yourself in that moment, all right, she's starting to figure herself out. She had a couple of forehand winners for that 2-all game, was starting to swing with more tenacity, starting to swing with more aggression, saying, you know what, I'd rather miss long, but go for my swings in this moment than leave this forehand short to continue to be pounced upon. Gets the break back for 2-all. What does Badosa do? She gets the break back right away. And obviously Badosa able to go up 5-4 in that moment. Now, again, credit to Gauff. Didn't throw the towel in. Gets a break back, gets a hold 4-5-4, but Badosa able to out-execute down the home stretches. Again, the plays were simple. It was just a day where Coco Gauff's forehand struggled with the depth, struggled with the pace, and was often left service line or shorter. And because of that, it felt like Badosa always had an outlet she could turn to get herself back to neutral within the course of a rally. And you look at the statistics in this match, Coco Gauff hit more winners than Paula Badosa did. You look for Coco Gauff, ultimately 31 winners, and it was by a sizable margin, 31-15. The problem was she also swung herself into a lot of trouble because she was trying to manufacture forehands in corners to get herself out of situations. She was trying to find depth and pace and compromise positions, and it's a credit to, again, the consistency with which Badosa played. 23 unforced errors to Gauff's 41. You look at Badosa's execution on serve, again, 63% win percentage on the second serve, a testament to just Gauff struggled to connect cleanly with that ball throughout the course of this match, and Gauff just 12 of 34 on second serve points. Again, the exact opposite story for Badosa, who had a plan on every point and had an ability to execute it. She's played with depth. She's moved well. You've seen flashes, not even flashes. This is who Paula Badosa has really been since round 3 of this 2025 Australian Open, and has managed to just sustain that level. It was enough against, again, a struggling Gauff throughout the course of this one. And look, again, for Paula Badosa, not only is she through to her first Grand Slam semifinal, she's 37-12 now since the start of May. She's winning 75% of her matches. She's into a Grand Slam semifinal after making the quarters at the U.S. Open as well. You look for her during the stretch, 8-8 versus top 20 opponents. She's now 3-5, versus the top 10. Paula Badosa should be where she's now risen to in the live rankings, back into the top 10, up to number 9. And that's a level we've seen from her for 7 months consecutively. And she spoke openly about it, how she was considering retirement because of how the injuries continued to stack up upon one another throughout late 2022 and the entirety of the 2023 season to start 2024. But now she's back. She's fit. She's playing with depth. She's playing with pace. A lot of skills available to her. I know you look at the net points won. It's not a ridiculous number for Paula Badosa. Actually, overall for Badosa, it says 6 of 9 overall at the net, but that's because Gauff was missing passing shots or, again, going for things she should not have because of the pressure Badosa moving forward was putting on her. Badosa didn't have an opportunity to play a volley. The depth was too good and everything coming prior to that. And again, Gauff really struggled on the forehand wing in this match. It just felt like it was impossible for her to generate any sort of consistent depth without trying to play with ridiculous height over the net and play almost not quite moonball tennis, but just clear defensive tennis that Badosa wouldn't allow. She'd take 2 steps forward, take that ball on the rise inside the baseline, and again, Gauff is on the run from there. There were moments when the Gauff forehand was clicking. Again, solid start for Gauff to this match, and how she managed to just, again, dictate with her. It's clear she is trying to play more aggressive tennis. The problem was, again, when she tried to turn to that defensive gear, it wasn't there for her today. Badosa was able to capitalize on any compromised court position. And again, obviously she was able to break back hold, make that scoreline tighter in the second. Paula Badosa thoroughly deserved this match. Paula Badosa, it always felt like she was in control of this match. Even when the nerves started to manifest again in getting broken back for 2-all in that second set, where she did play her one of 2 loose games she played. The service game at 5-3, another 5-2, another loose game that she played in this match. But okay, you played 2 loose games. That's about all you can afford to play against the world number 3, and that's all Badosa offered. And with this victory, again, 4th Spanish woman in the Open era, joining Sanchez Vicario, Conchita Martinez, and Garbine Muguruza as the 4 Spanish women to reach semifinals at a major in the Open era. She's it's her first top 10 win at a major as well. A remarkable moment for a player who has gone through so much turmoil, just so many different things off the court over obviously these past 2.5 years since she rose to as high as number 2 in the world. Badosa back on track. She knocks out Gauff. She will get a look at world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka now, as of course Sabalenka surviving a test. Sabalenka through in 3 sets over Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. This was a clinic in ball striking, as again ultimately, by the way, Paula Badosa 34-13. If we weren't live, I would have gone back and said Paula Badosa 34-13 overall at the majors since the start of 2021. He's averaging about a 4th-round appearance over 13 majors. It's pretty darn consistent. That's one of your 15, 12 best players in the world, pretty certainly when healthy. Obviously, now she has the ultimate test, as she's going to take on world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka. Again, Sabalenka, a 6-2, 2-6, 6-3 winner over Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. Again, from 6-2, 1 love down, to 3-all in that 3rd set. Pavs put on a ball-striking clinic, and that is almost how you have to play if you don't have Gauff's physicality, if you don't have Swiatek's physicality, if you don't have the ability to continue to extend rallies, particularly back into the outer thirds from defensive positions when you're dealing with the pace of an Aryna Sabalenka, or you take the Rybakina route, and in this case the Pavlyuchenkova route. You say, I see your power, and I raise you my own. I see your cross-court swings, and I'm going to pull down the line early, and I'm going to take my chances. And I'd rather go down swinging than let you rope me around the court, as you inevitably will. And for an hour, for, again, 1 love down, so 7 + 6, 13 games consecutively, Pavs produced that level of power tennis to a point where Aryna Sabalenka was compromised, where Aryna Sabalenka was getting beaten to the spot, where, again, it didn't matter if it was line, it didn't matter if it was cross, it was all there for Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, who won 63% of her first serve points, 23 winners to Sab's 29, 23 unforced errors to Sab's 27. You look for them each moving forward. Pavlyuchenkova 9 of 12, Sabalenka 5 of 6, but both of them moved forward far more points than those two numbers. They just hit approach shots that were unable to be returned. They were looking to move forward, though, more frequently. Pavs was exceptional. It's not as like, oh, she picked on the Sabalenka forehand and that ball sat short, and that was the one she took down the line more frequently. She did that. Like, there were times when she beat Sabalenka in forehand cross-court exchanges and subsequently had the down-the-line opportunity sooner. But there were times when she did that down the backhand side as well. Just, again, a clinic in ball striking, a clinic in pace, and yet Sabalenka could extend rallies more frequently. Sabalenka's best version of that cross-court pace, because she was more dynamic in the outer third, because she had the ability to respond to a ball that was redirected. If Sabalenka redirected, Pavlyuchenkova really struggled to extend rallies from there because she's not the mover that Sabalenka is. She doesn't quite have the first serve to dominate with the way that Sabalenka did. You look at the stats in this match, actually pretty even across the board. In fact, Sabalenka won 44 points on serve to Pavlyuchenkova's 42. again, the big thing was that ability. Okay, the rally got extended. What happens from there? Sabalenka overall +4 in this match. Again, a match that was decided by an 8-point margin. I do think that was the difference. Again, the +1 execution. Sabalenka probably was the 4 points better that you see in the total point margin as well. She was 2% better at all the things. Better at the movement, a little more gusto behind the first serve, the +1, more variety in how she could go about attacking. Sometimes it was with drop shot, sometimes it was down the line, sometimes it was short ankle cross, a little bit better at executing the first volley and putting that ball away as well. But again, it was +1 tennis at its finest. It was power tennis at its finest. You look in this match, 154 points total. Less than a third of those points went 5 shots or longer. It was a clinic. Pavs was able to go +1 for +1 with Sabalenka for about an hour. The problem was the other hour. From 3-all on in the third set, again, a flawless return game in that 4-3 return game from Sabalenka. Obviously, Pavlyuchenkova was not ready for the pace of Sabalenka coming out of the gates. Sabalenka blitzed her from the start. You could tell as that second set was beginning, Pavlyuchenkova, okay, I don't have time. I don't have the ability to work my way into these points. I got to take my swings right away. She played well enough to go punch for punch with Sabalenka for 5 rounds. Problem is, it's a 9-round fight. Problem is, it's a 3-set bout. And again, Sabalenka just too much pace, too consistent down the home stretch. It was a sound performance for the world number 1, who picks up, again, a 19th consecutive victory at this Australian Open. And all of our stats courtesy of our friends at Opta Ace. Sabalenka, the first player to make 6 consecutive Grand Slam semifinals on hard courts since, yeah, you guessed it, Serena freaking Williams, 2014 to 2017. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's the closest we've seen to someone play Serena Williams tennis since Serena. It's the closest proximity we have to peak Serena. It's the best impression anyone's done in the, again, 20 years, we'll say, since 2005, because Serena was already Serena by that point. Maybe not all capital letters, but certainly still a few exclamation points at the end. In the 20 years that players have been trying to mimic Serena's game, Sabalenka comes the closest to looking like the peak version of Serena. Just a combination of athleticism, pace, creativity, explosiveness. Sabalenka is the closest I've seen. It's why, again, she's a permanent member of Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club, a residence holder. Pavs, by the way, weekend privileges, and she's probably had it longer than I have been cognizant of, but let's be clear, she'll forever have weekend privileges moving forward. She can come hang out. Great hang. We want her around. Sabalenka survives the test, and in surviving this test, again, you look for Aryna Sabalenka now 55-13 over her last 52 weeks. She's 51-5 at the majors since the 2022 U.S. Open. 51-5. During that stretch of time, obviously, so what? She's picked up 3 major titles, so she's played 9 total events, made 9 total quarterfinals, now in her 8th semifinal, during that 9-slam stretch as well. 19 straight at a hard court match. Again, first since Serena to that. She's the first player to win 19-plus consecutive women's singles matches at the Australian Open since Martina Hingis won 27 in a row from 97 to 2000. How many times do I have to say it? We've done the pods, the peaks of the peaks. Serena, Seles, Navratilova, Everett. Serena, obviously, on that list. I think I said her twice. Serena, Navratilova, Everett, Seles. Oh, Steffi Graf. That's who I was missing. Excuse me. Sabalenka doesn't have the totality of what those players have yet. But in terms of absolute peaks, and just for the record, I've said this about Iga as well, but in terms of absolute peaks, Sabalenka is getting up there. The best version of Sabalenka hangs with any of the best versions of any of these players you want to turn to. It's that sort of pace. It's that sort of athleticism. It's that sort of consistency now as well. Again, this is the first set she's lost at this 2025 Australian Open. Pushed to the brink. Ultimately, again, she prevails in 3 sets. Sabalenka advancing 6-2, 2-6, 6-3 to, again, her 8th slam semifinal in her last 9 semifinals played. Sets up a fun day, by the way, between her and Paula Badosa as well. Just to look up the head-to-head here quickly, courtesy of our friends at Tennis Abstract. Career head-to-head for Sabalenka versus Paula Badosa. 5-2 Sabalenka leads. Sabalenka's won their last 5 encounters. Badosa last beating her 2021 Guadalajara finals. Their last hard-court encounter, Miami last year. Sabalenka a 4-3 victory. Let the record show again, though. That was before Badosa's 37-12 run now since the start of May. Badosa's playing better. Sabalenka has earned the right to say she's the best hardcourt player in the world again. I just gave you stats. First since Serena to win 19 hardcourt matches at the majors in a row. First since Celis to win 19 in a row at the Australian Open. She's looking for the three-peat here at this Australian Open for a reason. Through to another semifinal again. You look for Sabalenka now in her career overall. Sabalenka into a semifinal at a major for the overall 10th time in her career. Last, but certainly not least, let's talk a little Sasha Zverev, as Zverev ultimately survives in a 7-6, 7-6, 1-6, 6-2 victory. 2-6, 6-1 victory over Tommy Paul. And again, there were times when this match was choppy. Certainly the first set of this match, not a lot of opportunities for either guy on each other's serve. And up until about 5-all, it was very much just +1 tennis, first strike forehands. Tommy, the more proficient player in Zverev's service game, certainly felt like he had a bit more success, although again we're talking on the margins. Tommy was the more fluid of the two. It felt like Tommy had an ability to extend rallies early in this match that certainly it felt like Sasha lacked. And then when Tommy broke at 5-all, a loose service game from Zverev, certainly a couple of loose forehands, a bad error early in the game as well. You thought to yourself, yeah, Tommy has kept pace. Tommy's had more opportunities. Tommy's been the better player in this first set. He should be serving for the set. He should be up 6-5 right now. Credit to Zverev. Put more returns in play in that game than it felt like he had through the first few games, or at least with returns with any sort of depth and any sort of ability to turn the point back to neutral to that point than to date. But, again, Tommy plays a very loose service game at the end of set number 1, and you look at that moment again, looking back at the sequence there. Tommy, forehand error for love 15, backhand error for, I was confusing that with the service game at the start of the second, or at the end of the second set, where he made 3 forehand errors consecutively to start the game. 6-5 service game. He played well enough to get to set point. He was able to draw a forehand error from Zverev. He was able to pressure Zverev into the backhand corner by hitting that inside-out forehand that Tommy hit so well. He got to 40-30. He made a bad backhand error, trying to go for a moment down the line, trying to redirect, trying to take a big swing. And you could tell, again, it was an opportunity missed for Tommy because the ball was there on his racket to do so. Then he hit the double fault. This is the joy of going live. It's going to bother me the whole time that I couldn't reset, but I guess we all learned to live with compromises here. Anyways, this is the 6-5 service game in the first set. 40-30 makes a loose backhand error. Deuce, he double faults. Break point, again, he misses a backhand. All of a sudden, we're in a tiebreak. Zverev races out to an early lead in that tiebreak. Couple of big first serves. Good first volley on point number 1 of the breaker to sort of set a tone. Tommy, again, a couple of loose errors early in that tiebreak. Loose forehand error on point number 2. Loose forehand error, I believe it was, on point number 5 as well. And all of a sudden, he's down a quick 4-1 in that breaker. Zverev able to protect his serve from there. Again, 6-1. He takes that first set tiebreak. But again, a credit to Tommy Paul, who at the start of set number 2 right away is able to go out in early break to love lead. Now, again, Tommy does ultimately give that break back, and how he gives that break back was particularly poor. You look for Tommy serving for the set up 5-4, forehand error, forehand error, forehand error, backhand error. And the backhand error, again, 3 of the 4 errors, I should say, 2 of the forehands, 1 of the backhand. 3 of the 4 were just unforced. Were just missed neutral ball opportunities. Tommy trying to play some offense, unable to convert successfully. That was the particularly poor game. The fact that that game was then subsequently followed by Zverev obviously facing a set point on his serve, and certainly Tommy missing a backhand on that as well. I thought that backhand was more of a forced error, good offense from Zverev behind his serve. But Tommy had another set point in the immediate aftermath of playing that extraordinarily poor service game. And that kind of speaks to, again, continuing to find ways, Tommy, to build himself back, to give himself more chances. Heck, second set goes to another breaker. Tommy's right back in it, right? He gets goose-egged. 7-love breaker there for Sasha Zverev. And again, glass half full, glass half empty. I've kind of alluded to the glass half empty here. Tommy served for the set and had a set point on his racket in set number 1, was the better player in set number 1. He was up a break for the majority of set number 2, played a really poor service game to get broken at for 5-4, but had another set point in Zverev's 4-5 service game. He had opportunities in each of those first sets, wasn't able to capitalize. The glass half full, as I have said on this podcast repeatedly, it feels like if you can get Zverev to 5-all overall or 4-all overall in any set, particularly later in a major, he'll blink. He'll play passive tennis. He'll float second serves that you can attack behind and create opportunities for yourself to be the aggressor in those moments. For the most part, that didn't happen. And it really helped that Tommy gave him that gift of a service game at 5-3. He didn't have to be the aggressor. Tommy was happy to provide him the unforced errors in that moment. I thought he did play a better return game, a more aggressive return game, down 5-6 in that opening set, and certainly, again, to serve himself out of a set-point deficit, down 4-5 in that second set tiebreak, to pull away as fluidly as he did in each of those breakers. It was a big confidence boost for Sasha Zverev, who fell short against Fritz at the U.S. Open, who fell short against Fritz at Wimbledon, who fell short against Fritz at the Tour Finals as well. This isn't Taylor Fritz, this is Tommy Paul, but he was 0-2 against Tommy coming into this match, and again, it's a big moment for Zverev to get through. He got broken right out of the gates in set number 3. Tommy able to pull away comfortably in that set. Then he raced out to a 5-love lead in set number 4. And look, Tommy's brilliance fighting off 2 match points, the passing shot on the full stretch backhand flick up the line. It's a testament to his athleticism, his fluidity, his skill set, and the creativity and touch he possesses. Tommy's going to finish this tournament number 9 in the world. Tommy made another quarterfinal, third of his career, third consecutive season. He's made at least one quarterfinal at the majors. And again, for a guy who hasn't made a tour finals yet, this is the sort of start you need if you want to be in pursuit of that sort of accomplishment later in the season. This one will hurt Tommy Paul, no doubt about it. Again, had set points in each of the first 2 sets, was the better player for the majority of each of those first 2 sets as well. You look at the stats coming out of this match. I mean, Zverev also had a particularly poor serving performance in set 1 relative to him. Only made 60% of his first serves. There certainly were opportunities for Tommy to short hop second serves, as he did so well on the rise down the line and just rushing Zverev right out of the gates. Tommy had his opportunities in this match. 11 breakpoint chances to Zverev's 7. Tommy hit 44 winners in this match to Zverev's 27. He also hit 56 unforced errors to Zverev's 36. Tommy was even 35 of 47 at the net to Zverev's 24 of 33. In a lot of different ways, Tommy out-executed Sasha Zverev, and yet ultimately it was Zverev through to the semifinals. And again, you look for Sasha Zverev now overall in his career into his 9th career semifinal since the 2022 U.S. Open. That is 2022, since the start of 2020. That's the second most, behind just Novak Djokovic. Again, 9 slam quarterfinals in the, we'll say 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we had 3 in 2020. We had 3 in... he missed some majors, though, as well during that stretch. I was about to say, but I got to count the ones that he missed with his ankle injuries. All that is to say, it's second most behind just Djokovic. It's more than a Medvedev. It's more than a Tsitsipas. Obviously, Alcaraz, I think, has 8 right now, and obviously, given the 6-year delta between them in age, 6, 7, whatever it is, what Alcaraz has done to date, certainly impressive. Not trying to diminish what he's accomplished. Obviously, the recent rise of Sinner, you feel like he could catch Zverev here pretty quickly. But again, speaks to Sasha Zverev has been the most consistent player of this era to not pick up a slam title. And as I've said before, probably the most accomplished player to not have a major title, certainly in men's tennis history. He's 2-6 in these semifinals to date. Obviously, coming off of a win in the French Open semifinal last year against Ruud. He was up 2-0 in this Australian Open semifinal last year as well against Medvedev. By the way, 3rd career Australian Open semifinal for him. He's made these semifinals of every major at least twice, except for Wimbledon, where he has yet to make a semifinal. 9 semifinals ain't too shabby for a guy who's obviously been ranked as high and currently is 2 in the world. And is there any world where he passes Sinner? No. Even if Sinner loses here today in the quarterfinals. Zverev could win the tournament. He still wouldn't pass Sinner for world number 1, but there's no doubt, again, Sasha Zverev enters another season as one of the top 5 players in the world, and as such, he will have opportunities to fill his trophy case and complete his resume with that Slam trophy. Again, he is in 4 sets through to the semifinals should that Djokovic injury persist, although let the record show, obviously now both of these guys have 2 days off until the men's semifinals are played. It's an opportunity for Zverev. Now the pathway, this is where it gets real. Djokovic, then probably Sinner, back-to-back, but that's how you have to earn it in this sport. And certainly, again, we have seen Sasha Zverev play competitive matches with Novak Djokovic on many stages over their careers. In fact, you look for Zverev overall in his career head-to-head with Novak Djokovic to this date. I imagine Djokovic is still pretty comfortably ahead, but it's 8-4 Novak Djokovic overall. And again, for what it's worth, Zverev started down 6-2, so he's 2-2 overall in their last 4 encounters. Last time they played on hard courts, a Cincy win 6-5 for Djokovic in Cincinnati. Last time they played at a major, of course, 5-set win for Djokovic, that 2021 U.S. Open semifinal, which seemingly sapped all the remaining strength out of Djokovic heading into that final as he was going for the calendar slam. All that is to say, I think Zverev beat him at the Olympics that summer as well. All that is to say, roll the balls out. It's another blockbuster matchup featuring Novak Djokovic, and this time world number 2, Sasha Zverev, into a 9th career Slam semifinal. Goes Zverev. That, of course, rounds out day number 10. And just to quickly recap, again, all things day 10 and coming out of day 10 as this first half of the quarterfinals concludes. Certainly, you look at the total number of matches that have gone the distance. We're up to 42 now overall on the women's side. 42 3-set matches, not too shabby. On the men's side, we haven't had a 5-set match in 3 days. Day 8, day 9, both 4th round days, no 5-set matches. Here on day 10, no 5-set matches. Feels like something's looming, right? We better get something special down the home stretch here. We certainly deserve it. Again, you look for the American women, 0-1 on the day with Coco Gauff getting eliminated. Emma Navarro, Maddie Keys still alive. The women 19-17 overall. The American men obviously have Tommy Paul knocked out, but Ben Shelton still alive heading into tomorrow. The American men 23-13 overall. Of course, no players with college ties on the schedule today. There are also no players left 21 and under in either the men's or women's draw, with both Gauff, Alcaraz being eliminated here today. So, again, you look at the seeds we have remaining. Obviously, you still have the top 2 seeds in both the men's and women's draws. You still have top 10 seeds in Dimmenauer, in Djokovic on the men's side. Certainly 11th seeded Paula Badosa. You've got all seeds remaining still on the women's side. We got good tennis ahead. And with that said, let's get to our final, of course, topic here on the day. It is, of course, our Day 11 preview. As you look at the action ahead, best match on the calendar is Sinner Dimmenauer. Obviously, for Jannik Sinner, was dealing with, it felt like an illness more than an injury during his match against Holger Rune, and yet, if he's compromised at all physically, who's a nightmare to see at the other side of the net, a guy who is going to put every ball back in play and make you hit 4 extra shots per rally in Alex de Minaur. That said, ball is sat short for Demon over these past couple of matches. He struggled yesterday or 2 days ago with the pace that Alex Michelsen was playing with, and obviously it'll be even more relentless coming behind the ground strokes of Jannik Sinner. Sinner's also never lost. I think he's 9-0 in the career head-to-head between these two. It does feel like the heaviness of his ball. I don't know how de Minaur tries to slap that ball back flat even harder, as he manages to do so magnificently at times on the run. The pace with which he'll play through the backhand, you just feel like even though Sinner does a good job keeping that backswing short, redirecting it, that ball will still sit up, and Jannik Sinner can play even more freely from there. Demon has the creativity. He has improve the first serve, the ability to get forward and play on his terms, but against the pace of Sinner, I don't know if it's going to be enough. If Sinner is fit, he wins that match in no more than 4 sets. It's just a bad structural matchup because of the sort of relentless pace that Sinner creates and just the lack of opportunities for Demon to assert himself if anything gets to neutral, which, of course, again, he'll have plenty of opportunities to improvise. He'll have the crowd behind him. I think Sinner gets through that match. Honestly, I think it's in straight sets. Second best match on the day. Look, on paper, it should be Swiatek-Navarro. I just don't know if after 4 3-set matches, second woman to ever do that and reach the quarterfinals, I don't know how much juice Emma Navarro has left in the tank. And if you don't have a full tank of gas, She's won 0-1 the last 2 matches. She's dropped 4 games in her last 3 rounds. This has been a peak Iga performance at a hardcourt major. And I just don't know if Navarro's going to be able to generate enough pace to compromise all the things Iga does so well. So I think Iga gets through that match relatively comfortably, and that is why I think Keys versus Svitolina is quietly the best match on the day, because those are 2 players who are playing their best tennis right now. About a year in age, or 6 months separate them in age. Obviously, they've both lingered at the top of the game with a longevity that is just so rare to see. And look, again, it's power versus precision. It's pace versus speed. Maddie Keys is striking the ball lights out right now. You saw that in her 3-set win over Rybakina. You saw that in week number 2 of the season when she beat Pegula in the Adelaide final. And you've just seen that from Madison Keys as, what did I say yesterday, 29-4 in the month of January since the start of 2022. Lights out. Like, when she strikes the ball like this, you're always going to be in trouble, but it's how well she's moving right now and her ability to extend rallies and hurt you from those corners in ways she wasn't before because she has more time on her hands. I just don't think Svitolina is going to be able to generate enough pace to disrupt that rhythm. And I do just think Keys is in that good of a place mentally right now. She's swinging that freely. I think Keys blitzes Svitolina. I think this match is like a 3-3 victory for Maddie Keys. And then all of a sudden it does become a blockbuster between her and Swiatek, because while Swiatek can get her stretched in ways that make Keys so uncomfortable, Keys also has real weapons to make Swiatek uncomfortable as well. And so I think Keys gets through. I think she is playing that well. It's no disrespect to Svitolina. It's just a bet on Maddie Keys. I think Keys wins the match in straights. I think Swiatek wins in straights. I think Sinner wins in straights. And honestly, I think Ben Shelton wins it straights as well. Lefty pace into that Sonego forehand. It's a particularly poor matchup for Sonego. I think Ben gets through in straights. And again, if your semifinals are Sabalenka versus Badosa, Swiatek Keys, Djokovic versus Zverev, and Sinner versus Shelton, we're in good hands if that's what we see. No matter what the permutations are, we're in good hands heading into championship weekend. So certainly looking forward to being back here this weekend to recap it all as it continues to unfold. Of course, a reminder to all of you, though, make sure you go subscribe to our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel so you can interact with me during these shows moving forward, and you can follow all of our coverage of the 2025 ceremonial start to the college tennis season, the ITA kickoff weekend. Our coverage is going to go Friday through Sunday, so make sure you check it all out. Of course, a shout out as always to the tireless efforts of our super producer Daniel Westoff for the fuck of an editing job he does day in, day out, making all of our content possible. A thank you to him. A thank you, of course, as well to the support we get from all of you tuning in, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on the podcast format. Again, appreciate all of you who have taken the time to come join us today. With that said, for our fantastic super producer Daniel Westoff, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You know what we say. That's the break, and we'll talk to you all after day 11. Thanks, everyone.